There's something really strange going on with Drake because I see Iceman doesn't seem like a normal album or project. It doesn't seem like a simple response, like he's just wasting his time, and even less like a project made to please the public or critics. For the first time in many years, Drake sounds uncomfortable, cold, paranoid, almost like someone who's tired of pretending that everything is under control. And the most curious thing is that in the middle of all this chaos, he starts dropping bizarre references. But the more you connect these pieces, the more this album seems to become something else. Because maybe I see Iceman isn't Diz's album, maybe it's actually a message from Drake. And after analyzing track by track, especially from the main album, right, from Iceman, I think a lot of people talking online really don't understand what's going on, and I'm here to explain. But first, what's up, Action Crew? Listen, if you're not subscribed to this channel, man, do it now. Subscribe, leave a like, turn on notifications. Products related or not to Drake will show up throughout this video, just like the link to t-shirts that's here in the description. That's it. And without further ado, guys, let's go. But first, let me give a quick disclaimer. The thing is, man, the album that really has a message for us to analyze here is Iceman. I know you might mention Habit and Maid of Honor, but we'll talk about those a bit more quickly at the end, because what really matters here to understand where Drake is aiming is Iceman, alright? Since Friday, May 15th, when the project dropped, the internet has been chaos. A lot of people are trying to find references where there aren't any, and some people have already caught the references. The critics are really bashing the project as a whole, saying it's one of Drake's worst. And some people, both fans and even haters, are saying that Drake is trying to win the album war with this project, but not through sharp lyrics in response to Kendrick Lamar and company, but rather through sheer volume. But the truth is that the projections from the series are already showing something else. Like I said in Klingon, for those who listened to part 1 of this video here about the analysis of Iceman, man, the predictions are that Iceman will debut in first place, Maid of Honor will debut in second, and Habit will debut in third on the Billboard 200, which is the main album chart in the United States. And that's already a big indication that this era is already a success. But then we get into what's being talked about out there, man. First, starting with the project's name itself, which we've known for quite some time now. The name of this thing will be Iceman, meaning Iceman. I saw a lot of people talking on launch day saying that Iceman is Iceman. It's the name of an ice store in Toronto. That, by the way, when Drake shows up driving those cars, whether it's in the lives he did or in the Iceman trailers, it was actually the car from that company, Iceman, which is simply an ice company. That saw its sales skyrocket from last Thursday, from last Friday until now. But if I tell you that beyond the cold guy, full of hurt, and the ice company, I think this Iceman has a third meaning which people started to realize with the release of the project. For comic book nerds, the first big clue that showed up was Marvel's Iceman, right? The Iceman, whose real name is Bob Drake. Keep that name Bob in mind because it's being mentioned due to one of the main theories involving one of Iceman's songs. One thing we also noticed with the release of the project is that Drake is a master at making references to comics, movies, series, and also to barbarians. Double entendre bars which show up a lot throughout the whole project. I confess to you that visually, what caught my attention with the album release, right? Because I was really hunting for the album cover to use as an illustration in the other video, and at that point it hadn't been released yet when we were editing, but man, it was Michael Jackson's glove there. It's already common knowledge that Drake loves to buy legendary objects that cost millions of dollars from superstar artists of the past, but buying Michael Jackson's glove to put on this album cover was really bold. Or was he just trying to capitalize on the MJ movie hype in theaters? Another thing I found quite clever here before we dive into the analysis of the songs was the reference to the K-pop group BTS. Right in the first song, in one of the first bars, which made all the BTS members kind of react to it on social media. I saw several of them talking about it and all, and we know that BTS is a huge group that dominates the internet, that has a lot of fans, and with everything they do, they put up huge numbers and break record after record online. So guys, since they said that Drake isn't one of them because he's not American, doesn't live the hip-hop culture 100% anyway, yeah, Drake. He decided to embrace his hometown, which is Toronto, and bring this rap thing of being the GOAT, of being the greatest of all of them, to his city, Toronto. So much so that most of Iceman's music videos, actually not just most, almost all of them, take place in Canada. Besides, many of them were made at the CN Tower, that tower there, which is the postcard of Toronto, and Drake is there singing, dancing, dropping bars, firing shots in every direction. What I saw as a way for Drake to try to shift the center of rap to Canada. Another thing that also conveys a bit of this perspective of us versus them, he's not one of us, so it's us against them, you know? There's this thing about October Gang, which is mentioned several times and has various references throughout the whole project. In my mind, it's kind of like he's trying to say that he doesn't need the United States to be successful, he needs the whole world. And starting from the Toronto axis, starting from the Canada axis. Anyway, this Canada thing is really important, but I want to develop this idea a bit more considering everything I've seen in Iceman. I really think, guys, I think that starting with Drake, a Canadian rap scene is going to emerge, but we'll talk about that in another specific video here on this channel. Because now we need to analyze the lyrics of the Iceman project one by one. And man, without further ado, get your pen ready because Drake came out firing at everyone. He called out historical deaths from rap legends, shall we? Well, the first one I want to talk to you about is on the track Make Them Cry, which I believe targets Anthony Top Dog and also his own personal life. Hold on, I'll explain it to you. Here, man, Drake really opens up his heart for real. That's because on the same track where he shows a certain vulnerability, he also brings one of the harshest lines on this album. At a certain point in the track, he asks, what happened to Ty's Angels? For those who don't remember, Ty's Angels was a modeling agency in Miami that was shut down by the FBI. It sounds like a random line, but Drake knows exactly where it hurts. Ashley Martell, one of the former models from that agency, publicly accused Top Dog, who is the CEO of TDI Records, which is Kendrick Lamar's label, of serious physical assault in the past. Drake brought up the skeleton in Kendrick's boss's closet here. He's the boss, right? Of Kendrick Lamar, right from Kendrick's own camp.
He won't even listen to my words when he knows I'm in a load of trouble. I'm in a cut just...
Right, that back in the diss war, especially on the track Push-Ups, Drop and Give Me 15, do you remember that I analyzed it here? Drake talked a lot about Top Dog, especially that Kendrick still owed him money, that Kendrick still had to pay him for his songs even though he was already out from under his umbrella. Anyway, this already lets us understand that Drake still wants to go after Top Dog, which already hints that in the future on the album, he's going to go after Kendrick Lamar. And this basically happens on the track Dust. That's where Kendrick Lamar himself basically becomes the target. In this one, he talks directly about the diss battle when he mentions this part here. Look, what was the year they said you had a hit? Because I don't remember it being like that. Since 2009, I've been dominating this game. This here speaks directly to all the comments that were around at that time, especially about Not Like Us. Right, a lot of people still say that on the internet today, right? That they got to know Kendrick Lamar because of the diss war, or that Drake made Kendrick Lamar famous. A lot of people got to know Kendrick Lamar outside the bubble after this diss war. So it's Drake saying here that, man, like, you didn't have hits before you started beefing with me. After you beefed with me, that's when you really became famous. And the more you listen to this album, the more it seems like Drake doesn't want to save his career. It feels like he's trying to blow everything up before he leaves his own label.
I get everyone hit, I get everyone lined up. If it's up to me, I've been clocking.
Then we can talk about the track Whisper My Name, where the targets are Kendrick Lamar and DJ Khaled. This track has two really heavy lines of attack. First, there's the attack people call white label, right? Which is Drake saying that the label 1MG, you know, Universal Music Group, had to turn to a white label when Kendrick kind of left the group and finally got hyped. To make it simple for you, in the industry, a white label product is something generic made by one company and packaged by another as a new brand. Well, and it's no surprise that he's comparing Kendrick Lamar to that, right? It's like he's saying that Kendrick was kind of recycled by the label and distributed to be a new commercial success, just like Drake has always been over all these years. In the same song, he says that the situation has passed the point of no return, saying that not even if he sat down with Farfara Khan, who is the historical mediator of rap feuds, could he solve the problem between him and Kendrick Lamar. In other words, as you may have seen in my other video where I tell Drake's story in which he reconciled with Kanye West, I think reconciling reconciling with Kendrick Lamar is something very difficult and impossible, at least from Drizzy's point of view. Then we get to DJ Khaled's demand. If you watched my video where I talk about artists pretending to like the DJ Khaled, which I released in November, I put out that video on my birthday. I was working on my birthday. You understood that there's a really strong criticism of Khaled, man, because he always seems to want to be kind of mainstream, you know? It seems like he's always thinking about business and networking, and he doesn't seem to care about taking a stand within the scene. And I also mentioned that the Palestinian community living in the United States pressures DJ Khaled to take a stand on the war going on there. And every time he's asked, formally or informally, he dodges the question. So Drake took the opportunity to jab at Khaled about this, knowing that Khaled is Palestinian and Drake himself is Jewish. So Drews draws a parallel here, right, between the silence of DJ Khaled, who always made it clear, always said, right, that he was very close to Drake, that he was with him till the end, and when Drake had beef with Kendrick Lamar, DJ Khaled just said nothing, stayed silent, and to this day he hasn't said anything. So Drake made a comparison between the silence he has about the conflict in his family's homeland and the silence he had during the rap feud. Simply look, genius from Drake. If I'm not mistaken, he also makes a reference to the meat issue, that DJ Khaled doesn't eat meat, and that's why he didn't want to get involved in the beef, right? Beef was the term people used when talking about the war between Kendrick and Drake, right? Beef between the two rappers, and beef also means meat in English. But Drake plays hard, saying that the world has never seen DJ Khaled shout "Free Palestine," right? Or "Free Palestine," and that his own people are still waiting for him to use his voice. But for Khaled, money speaks much louder. This is one of the album's most personal tracks. It's no longer professional, it's personal between them.
Even speak. Yeah, you can't even speak. What's my name and don't say it too loud cause you gotta.
Then we get into the song Janice STFU, in which the targets, many people also believe, are Kendrick Lamar, Jay-Z, and the executives at Universal Music. For me, we've reached one of the most important tracks of the project. Okay, so why is it so important, Gerson? Well, I don't know if you've been paying attention to the charts, the Spotify top 50 and so on. This song here, Janice STFU, is growing a lot. And if I'm not mistaken, at the moment I'm recording this video, it's in first place among the most listened to songs. And there are countless explanations for that because people keep discovering new things about it all the time. Just to demystify the name of this song for you, this STFU means shut the fuck up. In other words, Janice, shut up. That's the name of the song. And people are saying out there that this song is actually making a reference to the series The Sopranos. But why is it making a reference to The Sopranos? That's because in this series, there was a character named Bob Bacalieri. Look at the name Bob here. Remember that I told you at the beginning of this video that Marvel's Iceman was called Bob Drake? In The Sopranos, Bob is the nice guy in the mafia. The guy everyone treats like he's weak, like a pushover, exactly the way they used to call Drake about a decade ago. But in episode 11 of the 4th season of this series, there's simply one of the most antagonistic scenes in The Sopranos, and it's widely replicated on the internet. From the outside, it's the day when Bob tells Janice Soprano, he just tells her to shut up in a public food court in a mall. She's dead and I'm here. Shut the fuck up. You shut the fuck up. So for many, the track Janice STFU for many is Drake's cry of impatience. He's kind of tired of being the nice guy and now he's yelling at Janice. But alright, now Gerson, who is Janice? That's where Kendrick Lamar comes in. That's because in the series The Sopranos, when Janice Soprano pretended to be a holy healer, a spiritual woman, and in alignment with all the social issues that were going on. However, behind the scenes, she was a hypocrite who used people, and in the lyrics of Janice STIFU, Drake talks about exactly that. He says, white kids listen to you because they feel some guilt, and that's how your soul finds fulfillment. Handing out turkeys in the chamber inside your neighborhood, and then you go back to the hills. He's kind of saying that Kendrick Lamar does public acts of kindness for people in his community, but deep down, he doesn't really care. Off stage, he's really rude, and at the end of the day, he goes back to his mansion up in the hills. But some people are saying that this Janice metaphor also applies to Jay-Z. This metaphor also represents the old guard who think they can pull the strings from behind the shadows. And the part that left no doubt for many people is when Drake rhymes that the dig zump, meaning the game is over. But as you probably know, since I know you follow this channel, Dig is one of the expressions people use to refer to Jay-Z. In other words, it's Drake saying he won't let himself be intimidated by rap dinosaurs anymore. So man, the big controversy going on overseas about this track is that, according to what they're saying on Twitter, in some places, Janice STFU is being banned. That's because there's a rumor going around that this Janice is also the name of a powerful executive at Universal Music Group. So I know there will be people in the comments saying that this information has been debunked, but with every passing hour, it gains more traction as if it were actually true. But I should point out here, this is also a rumor, but it's a huge coincidence if it really is just a rumor. Things got so intense with the release of Drake's track that several radio stations in the United States held listening parties to listen to Drake's album, and many of those radio stations skipped that track. And some people on the internet were also reporting that some reels, TikToks, and even videos on Twitter mentioning Janice STFU were being taken down, while other clips, other scenes, and other tracks were just fine. Some people also said it was because of copyright issues. Anyway, man, I still don't know what's going on, and we probably never will. But what we do know is that the people behind the scenes in the music industry are simply praising this track by Drake. Like, for example, Timbaland himself, the great producer Timbaland, saying that this song will become a rap classic over time. He recorded a video saying this, "It's not just me saying it.
This song is going to be timeless. Just that chorus. I don't know, I'm not gonna say."
Guys, let's listen to Janice STFU now. What if it vanishes from the album and platforms and we can only find it on the deep web?
Beach me, baby. Call my phone and say you need me.
Then we get to the track Make Them Pay, where the targets are Kendrick Lamar again, Jay-Z once more, and now J. Cole. Well, about Kendrick, this was one of the ones people caught right away, man, because he made a reference as if Kendrick was a magician. In other words, he releases songs, drops albums, gets a hit here and there, and then disappears like a magician's trick. Besides questioning the new goat of rap label that K. Dot got after beating Drake in the G-War. On top of that, he brings back the claim that TDE released bolts to boost Kendrick's streams and the streams for Not Like Us. Mentioning the episode where millions of streams mysteriously disappeared after Spotify purged fake accounts. Man, this could just be a big story Drake made up in his head. But a lot of people have pointed out these bars and called it a big coincidence, you know, if you get what I mean. The fact that Not Like Us was removed from the platforms, the music video was taken down from YouTube, DNX disappeared from the streaming platforms. All this happened the same week Iceman was released. Then we move on to the massacre of J. Cole, because man, it did affect Drake's former ally, and honestly, it was also because of him that all this mess started. And let me tell you, Cole took one of the hardest hits on the album. Okay, to sum it up for you, Drake kind of didn't get over it. Like, he didn't accept the apology that J. Cole made back during the G's War on that stage, saying he regretted his show, right? Saying he regretted the G's War, that Kendrick was his brother, and especially after J. Cole deleted the song 7-Minute Drill from digital platforms and even from his YouTube channel. We covered this event here the day it happened. Yeah, a lot of people called J. Cole a coward anyway. Now it was Drake's turn to talk about it. Drake called all of this submission and even implied that he would rather die than humiliate himself like that. He also says that Cole kind of stirred things up, you know, so that all this beef between him and Kendrick would start. And honestly, we didn't have that information before. And then he just walked away because of good memories he had with Kendrick Lamar from the past. That's how I understand it. And then Drake still drops the legendary line, right? Saying, "I'll never forgive you." That kind of, for me, confirms some rumors that back during the G's War, J. Cole also tried to get in touch with Drake to make him regret it or to get him to apologize. Now, I don't really remember everything that was going on. And people used to say at the time that Drake never picked up the phone, never talked to J. Cole, didn't want to know after that apology he made to Kendrick Lamar, didn't want to see J. Cole's face. And then in the song, Drake even ends by saying something like, "Forget the big three, this has always been a mess anyway." Whoa! Then man, he also uses this track to take a jab at Jay-Z, saying that the guys from his October gang, they even run things in prison. I'm not sure if he was talking about Tory Lanez or something, but comment below guys, it's just on my mind. I don't know if it's about Tory or not. On the other hand, the guys on the other side, who I believe are on Kendrick Lamar's side, they keep asking for a second opinion and also business advice from Jay-Z. That's something Drake doesn't need. He doesn't need New York to be successful. He can make millions of dollars from Toronto. And then he even jokes about the business advice that Jay-Z has been giving on the internet in the videos where he appears giving interviews and so on. It even became a meme that Drake himself took advantage of with one of the lines in this song, which is when he says he would rather have $500,000 than have dinner with Jay-Z because Jay-Z has nothing to teach him today. Damn. Man, now imagine if Jay-Z decides to respond to Drake. The mess this is going to turn into.
It's talking, kiddo, beat it. I'm supposed to be my brother's keeper.
Then we get into National Treasures, where the targets are DeMar DeRozan, Dr. Dre, and Kendrick Lamar. Here, he's actually making fun of something I read and thought was a lie at the time, you know? It was like this: the Gen X tour went through Toronto. Kendrick went to perform there, but on the day of his show, unexpectedly, new information was revealed. On the day Kendrick went to do this show, he had to be escorted by 30 police officers, especially when leaving, right? He left escorted by those police officers and went straight to the airport, got on his plane and left in a hurry. I mean, he flew out. Then he drops this line here. I even pulled it out so you can understand it better. Look, why was the Toronto police posted at my mansion watching until your boy left? Accusing Kendrick of having asked for police protection even at Drake's doorstep out of pure fear. And then responding to one of the lines from the diss track Euphoria, where he says, headshot for the ear, Drake kind of counters with a boxing metaphor. In short, he's saying, while the rivals try to hit his head, Drake causes much more damage by hitting the rest of their structure, which is the body. Now we get into the attack on DeMar DeRozan. This one we were already expecting in a way. I know you guys have already watched my videos, but it's worth remembering that DeMar DeRozan was a really close friend of Drake. He went to play for Drake's favorite team, which is the Toronto Raptors, and got really close to the rapper. But in the diss war, he sided with Kendrick Lamar. The player even appears in the Not Like Us music video. And then the conversation shifts from rap to the NBA because Drake rubs it in DeRozan's face that he never won any titles with the Toronto Raptors, and that the city only had a championship parade after they sent DeRozan away to bring in a real player, in Drake's opinion, which is Kawhi Leonard. Then he sends a warning to DeMar DeRozan, telling him to never hang out in Toronto after the games again, and that he's gonna throw any flag on the ground that's there, right, to honor the former Toronto Raptors player. And then we can also highlight here the criticism towards Dr. Dre. That's because Drake in this track questions why they're trying to paint him as a criminal villain in the rap scene. But at the same time, the audience applauds Dr. Dre's appearance at Kendrick's shows. Here, I believe Drake is specifically talking about the Pop Out, which is the Ken Friends that show we know as The Burial of Drake, where Dr. Dre himself came in and performed part of the show together with Kendrick Lamar. But the contradiction is that Dr. Dre historically carries heavy accusations of actions against women. In other words, is Drake saying, you're calling me a criminal, but you're applauding the criminal.
First time lit since back in the day. We needed that chip since back in the day. My motto.
And then we get into the track Make Them Remember, where the target is Kendrick Lamar and the booster seat or the child seat. Hold on, because this is also a lesson in fatherhood and English lesson altogether here. I'll explain everything to you. Drake is kind of attacking Kendrick Lamar and once again challenging the accusations of being a predator and a monster that he faced when Kendrick released Not Like Us. And then he implies that Kendrick used these topics as booster seats, meaning like a child's booster chair. Right? That chair that, let's put it in our Brazilian context here. I think it's actually a car seat the one kids sit in. Or it could also be those chairs that barbers use to make little kids sit higher so they can cut their hair to make them a bit taller. So besides making fun of Kendrick Lamar's short height since he's short, he's also trying to say that Not Like Us was boosted to become a hit. And then, using and playing with double meanings, Drake also makes a reference to small markets, which is what the music industry usually calls a small market, meaning that Kendrick Lamar only succeeds in big markets like the United States and Europe. But Drake, he's the guy who reaches both big and small markets, from countries that barely consume streaming or countries where the internet is a bit more scarce, which are also known as international peripheral markets, which include countries like Cambodia, Belarus, the Philippines. These places in the industry are called markets of. So, Drake makes a joke here saying that Kendrick is only successful in big markets, but Drake is successful in both big and small ones, meaning in Drake's markets. And to top off the teasing about short guys, he makes a reference to a short NBA player. Drake says even Muggsy Bogues managed to dunk once. And just like in the diss war once again, Drake bullies Kendrick Lamar for his short stature, saying that Not Like Us was just a statistical anomaly, a stroke of luck like Halley's Comet that only comes around once every 84 years. And Drake also emphasizes that if there are 100 diss battles, he'll win 99 of them. And it seems that Euphoria was the diss that hit Drizzy's cold heart the hardest, because once again he makes a reference to it. Remember when I did the analysis here when I talked about that line? What is it, the braids? That's Kendrick saying, what is this? Is it a braid? Like trying to say that Drake wants to act black and he wears braids and dreads, those kinds of things to feel more like a black man. And then Drake responds to that line in this song saying that even if he gets a fade, he'll never disappear. Fade in English really means to disappear, but it's also a haircut. Even if he does this, he'll never disappear.
And the lies that you tell. If Drake took out the AK, maybe he'd be in jail.
And then we get into Firm Friends, where the targets are Pharrell Williams and Kendrick Lamar. Remember when I said, when I analyzed Meet the Grums, that Kendrick said Drake used to drink that ayahuasca tea to calm himself down, to find himself and all that? So Drake decided to respond here. Drake uses this song kind of to take on the role of a responsible family man, rapping that he prefers to spend his free time taking care of his son and enjoying time with him, rather than using psychedelics. Here he seizes the chance to challenge the narrative from the rap feud that painted him as an absent father. And here as well, a lot of people believe he's taking a jab at Pharrell, continuing what he started back in Family Matters. That's because, to sum it up for you, Drake talks about the pleasure he gets from going to auctions and buying super expensive items, even if they belong or once belonged to great music legends. As I said earlier in this video about Michael Jackson and his glove, right? In this case, he's referring to Pharrell's legendary chains that he bought, using his endless money as a tool for public humiliation. And trust me, I'm the highest.
And trust me, I'm the highest that I've ever been, the greatest that they've ever seen.
We get into Too Hard for the Radio, which I believe here the target is Mustard, and even Kendrick Lamar himself as well. I'll tell you in advance, man, that Too Hard for the Radio was by far the song I liked the most on this album. First, because when it started playing, I got a strong whiff of pop appeal. And then I said, man, the beat switch is here throughout Drake's whole project, right? In all three albums, it's something that sometimes gets tiring, you know? But here, man, it fits like a glove, like Michael Jackson's glove. And this track, it has a really awesome concept. It all begins when Drake raps over a West Coast beat, right? Which is the kind of beat that, man, people from the West Coast of the United States, including Kendrick Lamar, usually rap on a lot. And Drake kind of uses that as a way of stepping onto his enemy's turf to show he owns that sound too. And on top of that, man, DJ Mustard gets dissed by Drake here, saying he hasn't had any real hits since 2014. That's because that year DJ Mustard produced a song for Drake and for YG called Who Do You Love? Let's agree that at the end of this song, Drake says too hard for the radio, meaning there are two songs too intense for radio play. Because man, probably the radio stations won't play a song that's kind of dubious like this track, and Drake himself recognizes that.
My new girl, you gotta look the part. Hey, it's Mr. Makeup Pipe.
It goes into Burning Breach, and here, man, the target isn't so much Kendrick, but $1 AP Rocky. Man, I and a lot of other people also think this is a diss to $1 AP Rocky because, bro, there's no way it's not. And for that, who does he use? Rihanna as an instrument of revenge there. And then he hints that he's bringing up that story again. Oh, he was the one who got with Rihanna first. Oh, Rihanna was into him. Oh, Rihanna this. Oh, Rihanna that. And also, if I'm not mistaken, this is where he brings up that line where he teases $1 AP Rocky saying, man, why does Rihanna never post your picture on Instagram? Stay sharp, huh? Where is she? Do you know where she is right now? And to finish, he even sends a reminder to $1 AP Rocky telling him to look in the mirror and remember that talkers get what's coming to them. That's because at other times, right, $1 AP Rocky, we know, right, that he was attacked or suffered some violence for not holding his tongue. He's saying, man, be quiet because whenever you talk too much, you got in trouble.
Drop addiction. Capo got so many watches, he might clock a nip.
And then we have to talk about What Did I Miss?, where the targets are LeBron James and Rick Ross. Well, about LeBron, we talked about him in the previous video, right? We also already knew that Drake was gonna take a shot at LeBron. And I'll tell you, actually, I think out of all the friendships Drake lost, losing LeBron's hurt him the most. There's a part where Drake says, I shouldn't have been shocked by you in that arena. After all, you built your entire career switching teams, exposing one of LeBron's biggest pains. We all know Drake doesn't need to reveal it, but for him to bring up LeBron's issue is complicated. But one criticism people out there have about King James is that he's kind of a ring chaser, you know? He switches teams to chase championships. Then Drake wraps it up with a pun about the 23andMe DNA test mixing LeBron's number 23 jersey with the idea that being fake is in his DNA. Damn! And of course, Rick Ross also got dragged into it, even though he was kind of ignored in the beef before, just a little, right? But now he got the proper response from Drake. Here, Drake makes a pun with the classic R&B group GLC to mock the beating Rick Ross took from the OVO security guards in Canada. And then Drake says this: "You need an ice pack from Chili for your left eye." Okay, let's translate that here. He's saying he needs an ice pack from the brand Chili for his left eye for the OVO guy, his left eye. In case you don't know, Chili is one of the members of TLC, just like Lisa Left Eye, right? Lisa Left Eye, who passed away in 2002. Another clever pun I found from Drake here is when he says that when Rick Ross was kind of, I won't say he was forgotten, but the scene wasn't really paying attention to him, he started doing features with Drake, like I mentioned in the other video. So those features with Drake helped boost Rick Ross's numbers and made him known to a new generation. So Drake says, aiding Ross when I aiding Ross. The verb aid, to aid, means to help in English. So when he says, when I helped Ross with streaming, when I was aiding Ross with streaming, referring to the streamer aiding Ross, the famous American streamer who, man, I honestly didn't expect him to go down that path.
Niggas get punched in the face with some TLC shit on a dead guy. Some TLC shit cause my niggas.
We have a somewhat controversial track which is Run to Atlanta that many people pointed out as shots fired at Kanye West. Drake uses this phrase here, "Look, if I'm lying, I'm flying." To add to that, I'll go in economy class. Making fun of the leaked photos of Kanye West flying in commercial class on a plane together with his wife Bianca Censori. It's a good thing it sounds like he's telling Kanye West to shut up and go back to taking his bipolar medication, and also to stop mentioning Drake's name. By the way, this song also sparked a lot of conversation for featuring Filtry in this collaboration. But about Filtry, at the end of the video there's a comment, then we need to talk about a plot twist where there's probably an attack on Playboy Carti and The Weeknd. Here, to get this line, you need to know a little English because yes, that's because at a certain point Drake says this: "You better be ready and able." Hold on, I'll explain it to you. Actually, what he says is able. And able is like when you're ready or when you're prepared for something anyway. But able sounds like Abel, as in Abel, that's The Weeknd's real name, right? And then he goes, "Because I'm coming." In other words, The Weeknd should be ready because Drake is coming. But where? Is he catching up to The Weeknd's Spotify numbers or coming for him? We don't know. And then the call out then shifts to Playboy Carti where he calls him baby boy. This really messed with my head the first time I heard it. Who was baby boy? Man, who is baby boy, baby boy? Later, people on the internet started saying that baby boy is supposedly the name of one of the new projects that Playboy Carti is going to release. I don't know about that. Let me know in the comments if you guys are aware of this information. But the fact is that Drake must be upset here because probably Playboy Carti was someone who was with him up until the diss war. And when Carti released I Am Music, he put, if I'm not mistaken, 2 features with Kendrick Lamar on that album, making it very clear to the world which side he's on. And he ends by saying that Carti is just a label pawn pretending to be from the streets, but he doesn't even know how to hold a piece if the two of them meet. Damn! And there was also a little jab at Joey Beaton, right? The famous podcaster and former rapper, or maybe still a rapper, I don't know, Joey Beaton. Back in the days of the diss wars, Joey Beaton, man, he really went hard on Drake several times, and I've already talked about this in several videos here on the channel, but still, it was just his opinion, okay? He was just giving his opinion, but his opinion is really valued out there, you guys have no idea. But then Drake goes back to mocking Beaton, saying that he's already dated several women that Joey Beaton used to be in love with. He kind of mocks him, saying he took one of Beaton's girlfriends to swim with dolphins and have the trip of her life. while Joey Beaton was in New York sick and with a stomachache. He also wraps up a story that went viral last year, which was Joey Beaton being caught sleepwalking naked in a hotel there. And several people there saw it and filmed it, and it ended up on the internet. Joey Beaton himself had to come out publicly to say a few words about it. Drake also took the opportunity to make fun of him. And Drake finishes in a cruel way, saying that if Joey Beaton died tomorrow, nobody would care because his life is completely irrelevant. Alright guys, now with all that said, let's get into the big theory that involved these 3 Drake albums, right? Which was about getting out of his contract with Universal Music Group. It's common knowledge that Drake sued the label, but a big theory came up when he released 3 albums, right? That Drake was kind of trying to imitate Frank Ocean, releasing albums back to back so he could finish the CD contract he had with a certain label, and then leave and become independent. And then, I rarely take the chance to talk about Bees on the Table. And in this track, there was also a line that got a lot of attention. In this track, Drake makes it clear that his fight has now reached a new level. He explicitly says that he's fighting against the man. In other words, the oligarchs, the board of executives, the system, and the record label, and not against the rapper himself. It's kind of like he's sacrificing his own career and burning all his bridges to become independent. In other words, he's saying, I'm not just fighting against Kendrick Lamar, I'm fighting against the whole system, which is the record label. And with that, the whole structure of the first half of Iceman with those exaggerated beat switches reflects this chaos and the urgency to deliver the project and shock the system. Alright, the theory makes a lot of sense, but we can't say anything for sure right now.
Bees on the table, bees on the table, bees on the table.
Here comes the verdict, guys. Knowing that the first album is the one with the real messages in Iceman overall, is it worth listening to Habibti and Maid of Honor? So the other 2 albums that Drake released, okay, my verdict is yes, I think they're worth it, but let's start by addressing the elephant in the room. Habibti is pretty boring. Man, to me, it's that kind of music for making love, you know? It's Drake on autopilot, which he's been on for decades now, you know? Nothing new, it's all the same stuff we already know. And the album is kind of, you know, tiring, let's put it that way. The song with Sexy Red, Her Not Her, kind of saves it in the middle.
I told you to stop comparing yourself, cause it's not a race. You flew out and shake.
She even brings a cool energy, but honestly, man, I didn't like this album at all. On the other hand, I really liked Maid of Honor. Alright, I already have a tendency to like pop stuff, but man, this album here is exactly the kind of album Drake usually makes, ironically. But it's kind of a summer album, a really sunny album, which is the complete opposite of the Iceman's cold vibe. These are those radio hits that undeniably you're going to hear every now and then. The opening track, Whole Phase, is going to make a lot of noise in the Northern Hemisphere's summer. If you start hearing this song coming from cars here in Brazil, I wouldn't be surprised. It's the kind of beat that catches on here. Plus, the collaboration with Sexy Red, this time on Tita Prim.
Stick a syrup on a cherry ice, girl. Tell me what you want and I'll tell you what I really want. Like a
and with Central C on Which One.
Mini girl, now I gotta switch one. Turn the hotel to a 20v1. 360.
They also turned out really good, very commercial. Here, people might say that Drake is all about the party tracks. Man, these songs here, he really made them for the radio. Not to mention Amazing Shape, which has an incredible energy, and it brings that Afrobeats vibe that a lot of people like.
you deserve more than 2 fingers inside.
And the moment when he raps over Brazilian funk in QNNA, showing that Drizzy's reach is completely global, and look, he's keeping an eye on us.
Put that shit on your shoulder when you said you can.
Alright, Gerson, my overall verdict on everything we've discussed, the album, the Iceman project, is really going to make waves. It'll be one of the year's most talked about releases. But I have a contradiction to point out here. Man, everyone who beefed with Drake in the diss war took some shots, except for Future. Yes, I know he's on Run to Atlanta. But man, Future was the catalyst for all the drama with Drake to start. It's true that they might have made up, but I think not even mentioning Future at least once feels kind of inconsistent to me, you know? I don't know, what about you guys? And another thing, Metro Boomin was kind of ignored, man. Metro Boomin was with Future on We Don't Trust, the album that sparked all this beef. Alright, in my view, Drake always saw Metro Boomin as a little bit inferior because he's a producer, but if Mustard got a diss, why didn't Metro Boomin get one? Then I started thinking, thinking. Could this be a strategy by Drake so he can show up at Future's performance at the World Cup, which is happening next month, and take the chance to humiliate Kendrick Lamar on international TV just like I predicted in last year's video? Only time will tell. So if you're here because of Future, leave a comment here and tell me if I'm tripping or not, but that's how it is, right guys? The Iceman project is Drake operating in his most dangerous mode, with his ego bruised, his back against the wall, and using his music to stand up to everyone. And in the end, the scariest thing about Iceman isn't who Drake attacked. It's the feeling that he doesn't care anymore about who's left standing afterwards. But I wanted to hear from you guys. Did you catch any other references to the diss war or any other jabs Drake threw? If you like this video, comment below. I'm signing off for now. Big hug from Nehasan. See you next time. And off to CrossFit!